Hey guys, so a lot happened today. Uh, Somebody posted on my previous video today and said, "Aw, you're only going to post like a 15-second video. We're not going to get a bigger video from you." I'm not just dialing this shit in. There's a minimum level of shit I got to say that I put into these videos, and also I'm still making these videos for whatever internet archaeologist discovers me 100 years from now from my point of view. You know, it's not just for the general public that doesn't watch my videos. Um, so yeah, um, today I had an appointment this morning with the VA, and then I went home and I got a bunch of different messages from different people on things. One of my employers is working on uh, trying to get through this pandemic and still be able to do business at all. Because, as you know, um, many states, as many of you know, many states in our country have imposed limits on how many people are supposed to be all in one place. And also, most healthcare style things are going to telehealth where they can. And we had already thought about this topic, but it's very difficult with the type of therapy that I do, being that well, for one, it's mostly group therapy, and if you're going to turn it into telehealth, the easiest way to do that would be to turn them all into individual sessions instead of group sessions. Well, those cost more on the individual person, so like you would be paying more than twice as much for the same result, which is, for mandated clients, it's checking a box so that they can get their driver's license back, get their probation over, all sorts of different things that they might want out of the group other than actual therapy, you know. But to take somebody who's mandated and then tell them, oh, there's no option to get it done cheaply anymore. You have to now spend even more money. And these are people that first they're people. Got to treat them like people, right? These are people that are strapped for cash. They are now hit with a pandemic where they might have to buy a whole bunch of months worth of food. They might be losing the ability to work during this pandemic, just like kind of I am right now. you know, they might have their job threatened and not be able to do it, so they might not be making any money. So, like, to raise the cost on them is it's a concern. So, we'd been talking about this even before states of emergencies were enacted. But today, an even bigger state of emergency, a national state of emergency, was declared. And while I was shopping in the King Supers, which is Kroger to people in different states, I had my cell phone propped up on the Peeps that I bought for comfort food for my girlfriend, and I was waiting for him to speak, and he didn't speak until I was out and into the parking lot with my things, which was almost an hour later, and it was in that time that I just filmed how long the line was inside the store just to get to the checkout. Um, Jamie says he had to cancel a business trip to Colorado for 2 weeks due to coronavirus. Um, when it gets rescheduled, let me know, and we can meet up. And uh, well, yeah, when it gets rescheduled after this pandemic, let me know, and we'll meet up. you're still possibly a vector for disease. Um, it says they were buying so much stuff at Costco today, canceled elementary schools in my province. Oh, Exiled the Banhammer is here, so please nobody mention anything off because she does have that Banhammer power of just booting right out of my chat. And some of my band hammers go off without me even seeing what happened sometimes because I ramble. I trust her judgment. See, she says, I don't band hammer no one. And then her name says exiled and it has the band hammer icon right next to it. Like she can't even type anything without the band hammer just appearing right next to her name. So, um, back to my story. Uh, so I was in line and just taking it all in. Like, Misty's already stockpiled enough food. We have enough toilet paper. We have all the necessities. I was able to find my shampoo the other day at Walmart. It was in a different style container than I was used to, but I think they were just changing that style anyway. So, or that shampoo's style anyway. So the ingredients are the same. That's what matters. So I got that. Um, so I had a supervision for my grad school, which instead of meeting in a library on Sunday, we met today on a Zoom basis, just like you guys are talking with me right now. And, we're all changing everything like the way that we're doing everything. And I had to basically, I this entire week I was soaking up all of the anxiety of everybody else in my groups about the coronavirus and then filtering it through me, and then I can give it to my supervisor, you know. Um, Natalie wants to know if Costco's placed a limit on the amount of toilet paper that can be purchased. Right now, it's zero toilet paper because uh, they don't have any. But yes, there are limits at some places, like Walgreens has been getting shipments of smaller, like 4 roll packages, like they usually have. And so when they get that shipment, they've been limiting people to one 4 roll package just to let other people have a chance to purchase them. And it has gotten people angry. Jamie says he hasn't changed his behavior at all, and he's just spreading germs as much as he can. Yada yada. So after my supervision and talking about how all of my clients want to talk about the coronavirus and how it's affecting them, and I was telling my supervisor that I'm kind of sweating, will my place of practicum be shut down through this pandemic, making it harder for me to gain hours? Um, Even more drama happened. And the first bit of it was uh, Misty called me and said, "Hey, could you buy one more bag of dog food?" And I did. I went down to the place that where we normally buy our dog food, and I got the last bag of the flavor that our dogs like. So there was that. Then the president started making his speech, and I felt like uh, he was kind of privatizing the entire uh, response to the pandemic by just trotting out CEOs of corporations and shit and saying Google's working on a website for us, and here's the guy from Walgreens, and here's the guy from Walmart, like just it seemed like he was making a big deal of how these corporations are going to be our saviors, you know, privatize everything. And by the way, he's also going to be uh, making money off of the uh, testing for the coronavirus because he has not divested himself from certain companies. And there are other places that have come up with ways to test for the coronavirus, like University of Washington, and they've been told by the government to not proceed with what they were doing because they haven't gotten the proper approvals for it. And so his company stands to make money. And yeah, just another emoluments thing from the president. Uh, but anyway, we're off topic there. Because I'm trying to explain how the panic is setting in to everyone, including me. So after the president's speech, I wanted to follow up on one of the things that was in his speech, which was uh, basically people have the ability in my state now to practice medicine without a license if they are licensed in a different state or their license expired. Uh, you know, we need all medical help that we can get right now, basically. So if you had a nursing license and you let it expire, you can go back to work for the next 2 months, right? Which is kind of strange. There are sometimes reasons why people's licenses aren't with them, and there might not be a paper trail saying that they're bad at what they do, but they still were bad, you know? So there's that. And I was getting emails from the Department of Regulatory Agencies within uh, Colorado about different changes they were making, and one of them was telehealth. They kind of greenlit a lot of telehealth practices that people weren't doing yet. Um, and this is going to change the landscape of my job because a lot of different therapies have been restricted from using telehealth. But the whole point of Doris saying this is to keep people from spreading disease and meeting each other unnecessarily. So I don't know what this is going to do to my jobs because most of what I do right now is run group therapy. So uh, um, I'm right back in the boat that the other students that I have in my school are in because a lot of them, their practicums were schools that are now, uh, they've let out for spring break and they're not going to come back within enough time for them to get all their hours before the semester is over, and they won't have completed all the requirements to get their degree. And Exiled says, you can't do therapy over the internet? No, not without permission from all of the different regulatory agencies, and they're working it out. But, like I said at the beginning of this, the easiest way to do that is one on one individual therapy, which is more expensive to the consumer than group therapy for what I do, which gives people the cheapest buy in and it checks a box for them because they meet their requirements because they're mandated. And to push the cost of individual therapy off onto them and raise the price of what they're having to go through is just shitty at a time like this, you know? You guys are now like really chiming in. Uh, Natalie wants to know if I saw any embarrassing public brawls. I have not seen any. I did see somebody who got in the line of people to get checked out at Kroger, and then that person got out of line, realizing that the line would not be fast enough for them to buy ice cream and not have it melt in the cart. So they put the ice cream back. Um, Amberger, who stays with us, did see some scuffles over toilet paper and people angry about limits on what you can buy. Mm, Jen M says, "Ha, caught you again. Fine. And you got me at the beginning of the stream, so you can actually ask a question or have, some other part of the conversation." Jamie says a lot of the Islamic countries seem to have this virus under control. China has horrible hygiene. Um, I'd say North Korea's response in that they were just shooting anyone who got sick, although extreme, it was the best result, I guess, from the public because everyone fucking listened, and it's still spreading in our country. Um, Italy has it really bad right now, and I'm not so sure that the response from all the Muslim countries was the best because the death rate from the virus seems to be a little bit higher in Iran. So, maybe it's just because their existing infrastructure wasn't set up to uh, handle things of this nature. But whose was. Uh, let's see. Jamie says China has horrible hygiene. Um, some parts, you know. Um, have you ever seen rice patties? Because I saw them in Korea and it made me kind of sick. Just like driving by them, the smell of a rice patty, it's not good. Not good at all. Um, Natalie says Trump seemed disoriented during the conference. He was actually reading from a teleprompter, which he doesn't normally like to do. He was trying to get all of his points in, so sure. So Natalie continues. Uh, he just often seems confused and struggling with his cognition in the public eye. I'm curious if anyone has ever observed this. Yeah, everyone has observed it. Your mother was a nurse in aged care and has a theory he might have early dementia. Yeah, okay. I would also say that about Joe Biden, you know, and one of those two people I like and the other one I don't. Alan says, I am Trump and everything is going to be all right. No one else will get it. If they do, I will give them some TP to which I brought out the whole store, and this will cure you. What the hell? It really did seem like Trump was trying to sell us on that his response to the coronavirus epidemic was uh, the best that could have been done, even though, he had fired a lot of the people who would have been able to help in this pandemic, and you know, the funds that he could have put in certain departments prior to this happening would have been great. But whatever. He's just all about selling himself, and that what they've been doing is like such a good job. And our response was earlier than the World Health Organization would have told us to respond. So we are so much more ahead of the ball game than uh, we would have been if we waited for other countries to tell us what to do. He's all about selling himself. So Natalie says Trump supporters aren't noticing it. I think some of them are. They just feel like he's their best chance at not getting shortchanged. Kevin Smart says Trump knows what he's doing. I felt like he knew what he was doing when he appointed the vice president to throw him under the bus rather than take the blame himself. But these press conferences about it, um, they're not really giving anyone any confidence. I mean, one of them seemed to further the stock market crash the other day. And this past one, after realizing that his speeches aren't giving the market confidence, they waited until Friday evening, right as the stock market was closing, in order to make the speech so that there'd be the entire weekend where his speech would not be affecting the market in a negative way. So that part, I think they got right, you know, as far as keeping his speech from affecting the Dow Jones index. But yeah, I wonder if anyone else noticed that the timing of the declaration of a state of emergency happened right at the end of the week, when he could have declared the state of emergency in the middle of the week, when it probably would have done 2 days better of uh, work as far as protecting people's lives. He waited till the end of the week where he could let people cool down from a state of emergency being declared, and then the stock market wouldn't be as affected visibly by what he said because there'd be a 2 day buffer. That shit is just cowardly because I'll say it right now, people are going to die because he didn't declare a state of emergency when he first thought that he should, because he waited till the end of the week and the stock market was closing on a high note at the end of the week in order to declare the state of emergency. That's how much he's all about selling himself. So, and Alan just said that the president is not secular in his decisions. He's a whimsical nightmare. um, that brings me to Misty sharing with me that area churches in Denver are now canceling mass, um, canceling all services because of coronavirus, because apparently it no longer works to say bless you when someone sneezes. Right? But no, it's so freaking weird for me as an atheist to see that churches are not going to be having services. And I'm like, that's not a good sign. I'm like, what has happened to the world? You know? Um, yeah. Poseidon says tonight the only thing Trump supporters are discussing is the downfall and embarrassing outing of CNN's Andrew Gillum. What did Andrew Gillum do? Oh my goodness. I think that my Johns Hopkins coronavirus dashboard froze overnight, and if I just refresh it now, I'll be able to see that the total deaths went from about 4,700 to whatever it shows right now. I hope their website didn't crash. Oh, here it is. Oh, look, U.S. cases went up by like 1,000. Oh, 5,429 total deaths. So almost 1,000 more people worldwide died uh, yesterday of the coronavirus. Um, and that's like up 20% deaths and still counting. That's just total confirmed. Jamie wants to know whatever happened to Julia Assange. I wonder too. Hillary and her court problems are what Trump supporters are talking about. I don't know what you mean by Trump supporters in that sense, but I was having a talk with Hatred 42, Robert Wallace, because he's been tracking QAnon now as a non believer in QAnon. He's just tracking it. And um, QAnon had this Q proof that on this day, or sorry, on what's now yesterday, on the 13th, Trump would have a big declaration that would equate to martial law. Um, and it wasn't martial law, but a state of emergency does give him sweeping powers, you know. So the fact that it happened on this day that they predicted a week ago means to me that even a week ago, diehard Trump supporters could see that a declaration of emergency should have happened then, but it was being held for this day, the 13th, for some reason. And I don't know if they saw their own idol's greed as much as I explained it, that he would want to do it right after the stock market closed at the end of the week so that his own words didn't look like what was crashing the stock market again. But it definitely, you know, was seen by a lot of Trump supporters that uh, the big heavy hand was coming on the 13th. So, I mean, if they could see that it was coming, it should have been declared before it was, this bad. Because just in the last day, the confirmed cases of coronavirus jumped, it basically doubled. We now have 2,174 confirmed cases in uh, the US, and Colorado just had its first death of somebody, an 80-year-old lady in Colorado Springs. Kevin wants to know if I think the virus happened a few months earlier, people would have been more willing to gamble on Bernie. Um, I think if the virus happened, uh, let's say 6 months earlier, uh, a good portion of Biden's voting bloc would have died. So yeah, more brute force physically, you know, by virtue of that demographic that supports Biden being, dying off. But yeah, um, yeah, like saying that coronavirus was going to be the moment that uh, the U.S. reassessed their need for universal health care because it's such uh, a shock to us. It would be like saying that I don't know, the stock market crash of 2008 and the housing market crash that followed should have been enough for us to reassess the way that we have banking regulations and maybe I don't know. I mean, we it happened, and we saw it, and it was like a shock, and then nothing, and now we're headed in the same direction. Natalie, I don't know what Trump's response was to the stimulus package after it was passed because I can't watch all the news. But I did see this morning Pelosi detailing that they had passed this stimulus package in the House and it was going forward. And prior to her even coming out with it, senators on the Republican side had been saying that they were working without bipartisan support and they were working overnight on it without any feedback from them, and you know, it was dead in the water before it even got voted on. So yeah, and one of the Republican senators was saying, why don't you pass it in parts that we can see transparently are going to help rather than sticking in pork barrel into a giant bill just trying to get it all passed in the expediency of a crisis in order to hide what you're actually trying to do in it. And that's just politics. Really, that's how things work. That's par for the course. Yeah. Poseidon says at least China has given us a cure to the rampant homelessness problem in California. Rest in peace. Um, Misty actually had a very traumatic experience in that regard. She told me that she went into Walmart the other day as the panic was already going on, and there were homeless people that were panicked outside the Walmart, and one of them asked her for some money, uh, and as a general policy, neither of us give that way because so much, I know that so much of that goes directly to alcohol, that panhandlers will use your cash to go buy cigarettes and alcohol. And I don't want to be a part of that. We'll buy food for people, but not, uh, give them cash. And so this time she actually did in just her expediency, give this guy cash, and she saw him in the self checkout actually buying food. And when she was telling me this, she was tearing up, like at the panic that homeless people have in seeing that all the people with money are buying all the food out of the uh, Walmart, where that's basically their pantry. They don't have any place to store food, so they buy it as they can, and so they were panicked, like, holy shit, is there going to be anything left for us? So Spurgleberry Farm wants us to look up quercetin and zinc, uh, and D3. Okay. Um, Kevin wants to know if I'm losing money over this. If the stock market should tank, I do have a 401k um, that would be affected, but other than that, it's just my ability to work at all is going to be affected if the niche that I work in, as far as DUI therapy, is not approved for telehealth because people already this week were not coming to my groups. Like, I'd say about a quarter. And tomorrow I expect to go and see not even half the people that should be showing up show up because they'll be quarantining in place whether they feel sick or not. They're going to be afraid of catching the sickness from other people. Jamie says that Alex Jones says there's already a cure and they're just holding it back. And yeah, Kevin said that the stock market is already tanked already. And what I'm going to tell you is uh, I believe that just like in 2008, this crash will reach, 2/3 of the value of the stock market. Now, it's probably going to bounce back up just like it always does. And that's why I'm holding onto my shares in my 401k, even though I think that if 3 weeks ago, if I withdrew everything out of my 401k and took the tax uh, penalty on it, today I would still have the same amount of money because that's how far the stocks have dropped in value that I could have paid for the tax penalty if I just drew out my money. Batfly says the correct answer to the following riddle gets you $133.70. It begins with a T. When you can't take a P, what are you in? Natalie says, that being said, my lousy prime minister is managing the coronavirus as well as he handled the bushfires. Uh, yeah. Jamie's guess is toilet. Jen's is trouble. Um, I would have guessed the tub. I don't know. Anyways, tomorrow I'm going to see how much of my job in the next coming months is going to be affected by all of this. And hopefully by Monday or Tuesday, I'll have even more. Uh, Pat Fly says, "You're in trouble. Jen is a winner." Batfly, you just like super chatted me, right? Um, so how am I going to get this to Jen? Crap. This is going to be a hard one. Alan says that paid leave is not going to pass the Senate. A Batfly says Jen was the surrogate winner. You get the cash. Well, hi nerdy. Thank you, Batfly. That was that was strange. I hope you're doing well. You were actually named at the end of my 10th anniversary video, Batfly. Jamie says 5 apples are in a basket. How do you divide them among 5 girls so that each girl gets an apple, but 1 apple remains in the basket? Uh, I'm going to say give 4 girls an apple and then take one of the girls and put her in the basket. Batfly says just don't buy beer and cigarettes. Oh, or give the last girl the basket. There goes nerdy, like coming up with answers that don't treat women like objects. Ah, God damn it. I am the world's worst SJW. I swear to God, I'm terrible at it. Poseidon is saying that I need to be giving people lap dances for money. Okay, listen. This is the 21st century, okay? And men have names and they get respect too. Like, there's equality in the world, and you shouldn't be treating me like a piece of meat that just does lap dances for money. And the crowd goes wild with lap dance, lap dance. Like, how do you lap dance a freaking camera? Look, you just like shut up and twerk. I didn't set up my whole setup right now for twerkability. I just gave you guys like what would have been I don't know, a body shot. I don't know that my girlfriend would appreciate this if she was awake, knowing that you guys are uh, treating me like this. And Jen, you know my girlfriend online. You 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 and her do the whole fighting with people who are wrong on the internet all the time. I know you know my girlfriend. Exiled says stop bullying. What the fuck is bullying? Is that one of those red coat words? Hold on. Bullying. Or maybe she just misspelled bullying. Bully. A company of Irish herdsmen or a single herdsman wandering from place to place with flocks and herds and living on their milk like the Tartars, or a place in the mountain pastures enclosed for the shelter. Are you calling me a goat sucker? Does this have anything to do with the powdered goat milk from the previous video? Nerdy says if I didn't want to be harassed, I shouldn't be wearing a hat. Oh, that? It's nothing bad. It's Free Thinkers of Colorado Springs. That's all it stands for. Spurgleberry says entertain turkey now. Um, I think I'm gonna have to make a twerk video. Rodline says that he wanted at least one zombie out of all this. It's early. We do have the stage set. This panic is set in, which is like slowly climbing. It does feel like the first couple episodes of a zombie TV show that's poorly produced because it costs very little money to create, you know, zombie effects makeup. Nerdy wants to know if I saw Biden's virtual town hall. No, but I think tomorrow they were supposed to have a town hall between uh, Biden and Bernie. Is that still going on? Uh, Debate canceled, maybe? Because it happens tomorrow. Phoenix presidential debate canceled, moved to Washington, D.C. DNC to hold Phoenix presidential debate with no audience was 3 days ago, and one day ago it was canceled. Huh. So you're talking about the one that was just Biden, but yeah, they were supposed to have a debate on Sunday, but it was they like first they changed the rules so that uh, Tulsi Gabbard, even though she has a delegate, isn't allowed to be on the debate stage. Then they made it like a town hall where instead of really going at each other, they were going to have uh, just people from the crowd asked them questions like they were coming from real people in America. But we all know that that's probably plans. So because it's the DNC trying to rig it. So now I don't know what they're going to do because if there isn't crowd to be able to look like they're just like uh, spontaneous crowd members asking questions, then they're going to have to actually let them talk to each other if they're going to have anything like where they're next to each other. And that could be really bad for Biden. So why would they allow that if they're trying to put the fix in for Biden? You know? Okay, Spurgleberry Farm wants me to explain why people hoard toilet paper. Well, um, I'd say a misplaced sense of priorities, for one. But there's definitely a scarcity factor to it, where when something becomes scarce, people uh, want to make sure that they have it. There's FOMO involved here. Um, it's very uncomforting when people don't have toilet paper. Um, and there is an example of this on the internet right now. JJ Talks on her Twitter let it be known that she was actually legitimately out of toilet paper and could find none to buy. And so there was a discussion on what she should do about that happening on Twitter today. Um, I think hoarding toilet paper helps people, like Aries is saying, cope with the feeling of helplessness more than just obsessively washing your hands because it's a tangible thing that you can hold on to. And it's not something that was being prescribed by, uh, you know, people who we don't have confidence in. You know, politicians are telling us to wash our hands, but not a one of those politicians is telling us to stock up on fucking toilet paper. But it seems like a good idea, and everybody else is doing it. So I think that's why. Um, and I was one of the first people to do it before it was trendy. I thought about like what would people probably buy out of the stores first, and I was like, see, you can stock up on even canned food, uh, and some of it might spoil. You might not get to it, but toilet paper, you could buy a whole closet full of toilet paper, and eventually you'll use it, right? So um, maybe people are just wanting to, stock up on something that they know they're at least going to use because if you bought a whole bunch of food, then some of it might go to waste. Spurgleberry is worried about the sewers clogging now. I would worry about the sewers clogging if your neighbor was using things other than toilet paper, such as paper towels. Um, they actually can clog sewer mains, and especially where your sewer line connects to the sewer main. Um, Spurgleberry says, with a closet full of toilet paper, you'll end up with mice bedding. I've never had that happen with my toilet paper, and I usually get one or two of the giant uh, 18 or 24 pack, giant things of toilet paper. And that's never happened to me, but I can see it happening. definitely. Any room that you're not in regularly to me is a room that mice can jump into. And I've been to so many different abandoned houses that I can see patterns of where the mice will go first. And it's usually whatever room is not inhabited at all, mice will get in there and feel safe. If you use all the rooms and if you open all the closets in your house, you're going to have much less mice problems. Aries wants to know what the best toilet paper stocks are to invest in. Uh, I don't know, but if you want stock advice from me, I'll say one that has the least amount to do with uh, the direct effects of the coronavirus. I would say buy steel when it gets down to uh, $5 a share. Let me check it out right now. Okay, so right now, if you were to just do United States Steel Corporation, it's 5.42 a share right now. When it gets down below five, it's a good buy. But wait for the entire crash of the market. I'm talking like 2 months from now. Look at it. It's trading under the stock ticker of X. Like most of them have a 3-4 letter abbreviation. It's on the New York Stock Exchanges at X, right? That's the one. And I would say as soon as it gets under five, it's a pretty good value. But let's say in a couple months' time, a whole bunch of boomers die off and a whole bunch of housing becomes available. So there's not as much building with steel going on for a good period of time, which drops the price of steel well under $5. It will rebound. This, like, if this pandemic takes a little dent in the total population of the planet, you know, we are so prolific now as a species that we will rebound in our numbers very shortly thereafter. And that dip is something that you can ride with steel. There's your stock advice from me. Um, and that's not just because I'm a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm just saying, I see the price falling well below where it is right now because of uh, the glut of housing that will open up because of this pandemic killing people. And when when people need more houses built again, they're going to want some steel inside of them. Let's see. Alan says it takes him 4 months to go through 4 rolls of toilet paper. I hope that Alan was washing his hands thoroughly before it became so trendy. Poseidon says, where do you store your apricots? Are you a pickler? One, I don't like eating apricots, and I'm not a pickler, but I eat dehydrated fruit and mostly dehydrated pineapple right now. Jen says that's where mice made a house. Oh, that's why mice made a house in her stove. Now I can't use my oven. Um, wait, were they making a house in your stove because you weren't using your stove? and the non-use made it uh, appealing to them. They pissed in the insulation of the stove. Ooh, ooh. And then, like, if you were to try to set the stove on like broil in order to clean it with like oven cleaner, you just smell mouse piss. Ooh, that's a tough one. Yeah, that's when I would just go to the restore and get a different stove and throw that one out. You know, that's me. I'd just take it down to the recyclers and say, hey, here you go. Um, Exiled says buy stock in soap and hand sanitizer. After this is over, uh, will it continue to grow, or will they level off in their um, once they plateau, will there be growth after the coronavirus panic is over? Because really, right now, um, soap would be the better bet over hand sanitizer because hand sanitizer is being uh, regarded as something that isn't as good as soap by all the so-called experts. So I'd go with soap. Let's see. Rodline says buy low, sell high every time. Yeah, and right now, when you see the market go down 1,000 points and they go up 1,000 points, they go down 1,000 points and up 1,000 points, that's a volatility, right? We're not looking for volatility. We're looking for, okay, the crash that happened in 2008, right? It had a lot of volatile jerks on the way down. But when it leveled out, bottomed out, 2009 and 2010, where you can see the general trajectory is going back up, that's when you buy. Okay, because you don't know where that bottom's going to be. Like I'm predicting, 2/3 of the market value of all those stock exchanges is going to go, bye bye. But some people might think that it's hit bottom at 1/3 of its current value, and they'll jump on the train before I get a chance to, and they'll be right. Who knows? It's gambling. Spurgleberry Farm says mice will avoid cedar chips. Rodline thinks that plastics are the way to go. Invest in plastics. Um, it's where I work. It will take out most of our residents. I get so angry when people say it. It just kills the vulnerable. Um, it killed out of the first uh, 10,000 cases. It didn't kill anyone that was younger than 10 years old, but we've actually had a couple people since then be of the younger age. But yeah, it has a chance to kill everyone. Your chance of dying of it is never zero. And I know that sounds memeish, but um, someone my age would have a 0.2% chance of dying of it. Then there's add in being overweight gives you more of a chance of dying of it. Having a compromised immune system, of which I'll just put myself in that category because of what the flu did to me last year. And I was in the hospital for 36 hours and had that 105 fever and shit like that. that shit sucked. And, that was just 1 year ago. I don't really feel like going through a flu like phase again after that. At least I know to take Tylenol. But, uh, yeah, I've got other factors going for me that say, yeah, it might be a little bit better than 1% chance that I would die from it. And there's a lot of things that I would not do if I thought uh, I had a 1% chance of dying from it, you know? Nerdy wants to know about fiber. Like, do you want to invest in like fiber optics? Or do you think that people need more fiber in their diet? And so you want to invest in shredded wheat, Metamucil? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Italy hasn't been prioritizing the sick and elderly for testing. Um, I heard about that, and that's one of those things that's difficult to talk about when we're talking about how in our country we are considering a single payer system because there are some countries whose nationalized healthcare systems make difficult choices. You know, uh, if someone's extremely elderly, they tend to not get uh, boutique care anymore, and they kind of get neglected because they've lived a full life, you know, and they don't go out of their way to protect them, and that sucks. You know, we definitely have a different mindset about how we might implement better healthcare here, and it sure doesn't include just letting the old people die because they're probably going to get uh, infected anyway, so why try to stop it? That's just. I don't envy the guy who has to make that call. You know, I'm more of a let's try to save everybody type of guy, and I don't envy the guy who has to make a call like that of like where they're going to test and who they're going to test, and then they end up not testing the old people because they just figure they're going to die anyway, no matter what you try. That's that's pretty harsh. How is it that I have 15 people on a Friday night into Saturday, 16 now, watching my live stream? How is that? Um, Spurgleberry Farm says hand sanitizer will be less because people will learn how cheap it is to make it on their own. Hmm. You know, uh, it's going to make people realize a lot about the prices of things. Uh, when people are trying to sell a little bottle of hand sanitizer for $50 and they are running afoul of the price gouging laws that we have in our country, and then somebody tries to buy their insulin vial and it's like $200 to $700, and that's actually just considered good health care. I think we have our priorities out of order. Rodline wants to know: has anyone checked who the conspiracy people are blaming? Illuminati or alien thing? I think the best conspiracy I've seen was it was a Robert Patterson book, I think. Um, or it could have been some other author that wrote that the virus was going to come from Wuhan. I'm going to look this up. I don't want to give you the wrong author's name. Dean Koontz in his 1981 novel. Now, there's a lot of different, uh, you know, differences between what Dean Koontz said and what's actually happened. But yeah, people on TikTok have been saying that, oh, Dean Koontz predicted this, in 1981, and then they show like how the label on the Chinese equivalent of the CDC looks a lot like the Umbrella Corporation in Resident Evil, because it's just basically taking the red parts and turning it into aqua, but it's like the same symbol as Resident Evil's Umbrella Corporation, basically, if you're colorblind. Let's see. Hi, Bugsy. How you doing? Harry said Bitcoin because it will go up because people are afraid to use real money because it might transmit corona. Well, when Bitcoin dropped $6,000 in a day, it's also so volatile that I don't trust it as a long-term investment. Like I can see trends in it that are, 1 or 2 weeks long. That sometimes if I was in it for the short-term gain and I thought I could, get the trades over with exactly when I wanted them to, I might take a stab at that. But over the long term, I have no idea where Bitcoin is going because there are so many other uh, digital currencies now to play with, and it's just too volatile, in my opinion, for my taste. Let's see. Well, I'm very much behind everything you guys had to say in this. Wow. Alan says just eat cabbage and wheat germ. That's not going to work for people who have celiac disease. Some of us are gluten free, not by choice. That's not very inclusive of you, Alan. Exiled says as soon as you put them in care homes, they're at risk because elderly are being neglected all over the place. Actually, I am very much in the back of my mind afraid for my stepmother because she took a fall and her ribs were cracked and she got put in the ICU in Wisconsin. And uh, I don't think I will be traveling anywhere to visit her. And I will be stuck where I'm at. She's stuck where she's at. And she's in a hospital for the next 2 weeks. And hospitals are the breeding ground for diseases. Sorry to say, but even before she took that fall and cracked her rib, she had a lung transplant, and one of her lung transplants actually failed, and she had to get another one. So um, she's in a very bad position if she were to get the coronavirus because she's already on borrowed lungs. So I don't really like thinking about it, but yeah. hope she gets out of there and gets to go home to, avoid the rush of people that might go to that hospital with coronavirus. Mary says the only elderly that are not neglected are the ones that are millionaires. I've actually seen some pretty good health care given to the elderly that aren't millionaires, but it is still expensive, and uh, it should be given to more people than it is. And I like the organizations like Innovage and SARTA around the Colorado area that give seniors things like a nice buffet type restaurant meal that costs like $2, you know, because they are on a fixed income, and being able to eat a nice meal for a very low price like that um, is such a big deal. Um, and just the different activities that they give elderly people, those two organizations, and running buses that help them get around, you know, we can still do better, but working with a lot of social workers, I have an incredible amount of resources I could give a person uh, as far as helping them out when they're old. And I wish that every old person had at least one social worker visit them and just look at their life and, you know, see which programs already exist that would be a good fit for them, because there's so many unused programs out there that aren't used to their capacity, and there's so many people in need, and if we just had those two things, find each other, it'd be a good thing. Now I have 20 people watching me, and it is like 1 a.m. on a Saturday early morning. What the fuck are you guys doing with your lives? Oh wait, I know. You're not going out and partying because of the coronavirus. Like all the dumbasses in my city that went to a fucking Post Malone concert at the Pepsi Center last night, which is ah, that's another source of my anxiety. Like schools are closing, universities closing, churches closing, uh, places that do therapy closing. Pepsi Center, we're going to stay open for a giant concert and have thousands of people show up. Even the NBA not having games. And post fucking Malone is so fucking greedy, that, he thinks, oh man, if I don't make this money right now, and have everybody see me right now, then I'm not going to make this money 2 months later. No, Post Malone has made it, and after this pandemic is over, I'm betting that his fans are in the demographic that, most of them will still be there. And what he did, I just think was a greedy cash grab right before the cash got cut off, because uh, the concert promoters that put on his show right the day after, that was this morning. They were saying that for at least a month they've canceled every show that they're promoting. So, and that was AEG Promotions, I think. There were some other promotions that did the same thing, and yeah, after I heard that on the radio, uh, the radio broadcaster had people calling in from all over the city giving reports of where the toilet paper was and was not. And that's the world we live in right now. I don't know if Batfly is still in the chat. Thanks, Batfly, for the very large donation. Um, Still probably going to do something good for Jen Martino in the chat. Oh, Brian, my other band hammer popped up. Crap. He says the BBC predicted it in the early 70s in their two-season drama Survivors. Um, do you think the Andromeda strain has parallels with what's going on? Because that was one of my favorite stories, and even the dramatizations of it, where like even though it was horrible uh, special effects when they slit the wrist and like dust came out of the body's wrist. It was just like uh, looked like iron oxide pouring out of it, even though it was like obviously a fake wrist at that point. Um, I thought that was just brilliant. Corny, I hope you get your gallbladder surgery that you need. Um, don't know what country you live in, but it's horrible. That is horrible. Exiled says Bitcoin is down currently. It was down 6,000 the other day. Warning, Brian. Let's see. Wow, how far behind this chat am I? Brian says the only treatment for this now is symptom management, which means painkillers and respirators in the main, regardless of how much wealth you throw. Um, and I haven't seen any video of Tom Hanks and his wife. Um, Misty saw a video of, I guess, their kid who was in America who posted to social media about them in Australia. But I think um, they could be instrumental as being like the face of what this looks like if they were to make some videos about what's happening to them. Batfly says we're all freaking out and looking to the mental health experts to make everything better. That's about right. I can't say all the different things that I had to hear this week because of confidentiality, but I can tell you that I ran um, almost two handfuls of groups in group therapy last week, and every one of them, I would say at least a third of the conversation that happened in the group was about coronavirus because you have to deal with immediacy. What is affecting people in the moment. You can't just let it go if you're a good therapist. So you know, if it's that big that they just have to talk about it, you got to let it happen. And then uh, when one person opens up, it oftentimes leads other people to. And one of my friends who's working solely in just individual one on one sessions, he said that it hardly happened in his uh, sessions. And I think that has to do with when you have a group of people and one of them says it, then all of the rest of them, chime in on it. But if you have just one-on-one sessions, people might be more likely to just work on what's affecting them. But I can tell you, uh, me in a therapy session as a client right now, I am talking about coronavirus, you know, and all that it's done to my life. Let's see. Um, Aries wants to know about plasma transplants for people who have corona immunity now. Um, why wouldn't they have tried that with the regular flu before? Is there such thing as an immunity that you could give to somebody else with regards viruses this small? I don't know. Oh, the Chinese are blaming the coronavirus outbreak on the U.S. military. Um, well, if that were the case, then it's come home to roost now, hasn't it? Um, Imperator says you had the sniffles and did your best to hide it because it was rousing dust from your old apartment. You felt beyond embarrassed being near anyone, and you're sniffle free now. With the amount of people that I've seen uh, and come into contact with in the last uh, 2 weeks, there's a good chance that I already have it, which to me makes so much sense that we should switch to telehealth. And hopefully that happens soon because I'm not afraid so much of me dying of it. What I'm afraid of is me transmitting it to one of my much older clients and then them dying of it. That shit would not sit well with me, especially right now because I've been grieving so many other deaths that have happened in my life. Uh, as a healthcare provider, you don't want to be the person that killed your clients. Let me tell you, that's just that goes beyond just not being able to save some of them because the therapy just isn't connecting with them. It's like an active thing. If you're a carrier and you're transmitting to your clients something like this and it kills them, that's an active thing you just did. So at the first uh, inkling of me feeling like I might be sick, I'll go get tested, and I'll be out thousands of dollars probably if I do come up positive. You know, um, short of doing telehealth, which I think you could probably still do if you were just slightly sick. Because you're still able to flap your yap, and that's how I make my money. Good thing this isn't my money maker, right? Or twerking, as it were. Uh, Jamie Demeter says Infowars said the coronavirus was made in a lab. Um, I saw those clips. I don't believe Infowars as a credible source of news, but I will admit that with the amount of science babble they were using, I could not find a way to dismiss what they were saying because they were outside of my scope. I just generally don't trust them. Alan wants to know if I've watched Outbreak. Let's see. I know I watched Outbreak. I watched World War Z, which was traumatizing in a way because of what happened with Gwyneth Paltrow in World War Z. That shit just like stunned me. I was like, the fuck? How how is this a movie? You know? And there were other movies I've watched about uh, pandemics, and to me, the one instance of Hollywood depicting a pandemic that stands out to me the most was actually an episode of the X Files where the people who got sick had these like giant, big, huge, bulging uh, cysts that would just then like burst, and when they got other people, then those people would get sick. But like it would make them go crazy and like make them want to spread it. And yeah, that I don't know if you guys saw that episode of the X Files, but yeah, it's kind of firmly ingrained in my head the dangers of pandemics like this. Alan says Canada has isolated the virus and is figuring it out now. They do not want to see hockey season canceled. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. For some people, the NBA being canceled is a big, big thing. Um, wow, I am so far behind. Batfly says we should care about the tens of thousands of deaths that happen because of commuting. Because if we stopped commuting and started living closer to where we worked, then we would be able to help out with global warming and to reduce deaths. And also, I think it's important to compare, just because I'm an addiction counselor, mind you guys, the number of people killed by drunk drivers every year to the number of people who die from this pandemic. Um, I think you will find far less stringent activism around drinking and driving than you will uh, this coronavirus outbreak. But we still allow people to have driver's license even after they have been arrested for drinking and driving 3 times. In my state, it's only a felony on the fourth time. All right. So, what I'm looking at right now says one person every 50 minutes dies from a drunk driving accident, about 30 people a day, 10,000 lives a year in the United States alone. So, if the coronavirus gets to its peak that people have predicted, then maybe we'll see it kill more people than drunk driving. But really, that's my measuring stick of life, because that's what I do for a living is give therapy to people who have DUI convictions. So yeah, it it's like how I measure the severity of everything else. It's, is it as bad as drunk driving? Is it as bad as uh, the number of people whose deaths are attributed to smoking every year? That's like the big number. But drunk driving is like the $1 bill, and smoking is like the $20 bill as far as measuring things. Batfly says remote work where possible would be a rule rather than an exception. And Misty, Seeking Shadows, she is uh, now going to be a remote worker for at least the next 2 weeks while they assess the need, which it'll probably be uh, stretched out farther than that. But she also does group therapy, and all of her clients now have been turned into individual therapy. But where she does therapy, those clients have other methods of paying. With the agencies that I work for that do DUI therapy, those clients have to pay out of pocket for the most part. There's a few clients here and there that don't, but that out of pocket cost isn't an issue with her. So, like changing someone from group therapy to individual doesn't affect their pocketbook at the point of care. So, there's not as much of an ethical problem with doing that. But Misty's going to be working from home for a couple weeks now. So I just want them to do the same thing for me. Contagion is a good movie. Also, Misty wants to rewatch 12 Monkeys, a movie from when we were teenagers. Oh my goodness, I am so far behind you guys' comments. Uh, Batfly sees he's been remote working since 2007, and he doesn't miss the traffic. There are some good things about the catharsis that you can get from driving to work, especially if you're screaming to punk rock music. Pop punk doesn't work as well. Uh, Being tied to a commute route is not freedom. Um, yeah, I get you there. And also, if you're working from home, you can just throw on your work clothes and make it to your scheduled sessions, uh, in the nick of time instead of having that giant uh, hour out of your day every day spent driving. Um, yeah. See, Jen says throw on clothes. Yeah, throw on clothes. You think I'm always wearing pants when I do these things? Why do you think I'm so averse to twerking right now? You guys are going to see my Star Wars underwear. And like Dan Jensen let out in my anniversary video, I used to let you guys see my Star Wars underwear back on, what was it, Blog TV. But no. That's not YouTube friendly. You guys don't get to see the dark side of the Force. We used to have a term for it. It was called uh, Donald Ducking it. Yeah. Thanks, exiled. She says those days are gone, thankfully. Uh, so, guys, I gotta drop. I gotta get some sleep so I can go to work tomorrow and see how many of my clients show up and see if I can persuade my boss to go to uh, telehealth because if nobody shows up, then we're not making enough money uh, to really have me there. And I think the level at which that happens is he needs to have 5 people out of 12 show up in each group for it to still be worth it to have me run the group for him. If it got down to 4 or 3, he'd be losing money. So, fingers crossed, we'll have some results that end up speeding things along and getting us to telehealth instead of me going into work and you know getting infected if I'm not, or being infected and infecting other people. So, and Batfly says, and we're going to make this the last thing that we say here today. He says, read the Gulag Archipelago. Archipelago. It says all you need to know about the things to come. And I am curious enough because I've never heard of it. I'm going to look that up right after I stop this stream. So, everybody, wash your hands at least 20 seconds and use soap.